Most people wait until their hard drive's dead before they end up taking it into a computer repair shop and then finding out that it requires some sort of data recovery effort to get their data back. And it's because they either don't have a current backup or any backup at all. I'm Daniel, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to find out what type of hard drive you have installed in your computer so that you can download the correct tool to test it with, where to find the tool, and how to use it. All this coming right up. Stick around. So whether you use your computer for personal use or business, there's a lot of data that you have stored on there that you don't want to lose. But even if you have regular backups that you do, if you're not imaging or cloning the drive on a regular basis, you would have to still reinstall everything on your computer if the hard drive died, and then go to your backup and restore the data. So wouldn't it be nice if you knew that if the hard drive's going, that you can make sure that you can clone or image that drive to a new good working drive, so that way not only do you save time, but the frustration of having to reinstall all of your programs again, connecting to the Wi-Fi, the printer, all the personalization and customized settings throughout the operating system and your various programs that you do. And if there's something that you didn't back up because it was stored in a different location, you would have missed that in your standard backup. So having a clone is really helpful and a big time saver, especially if you're in business. So I'm not going to show you how to clone a drive in this tutorial, but I am going to show you how to determine that it's urgent that you do one. One disclaimer is that whatever brand computer that you have, they're going to have their own branded diagnostic tools that come with it. And it can be helpful and good for the average person that doesn't know what to do and what tools to use. And it'll test everything from the CPU, the memory, the hard drive, video, all this stuff. But if you can get the correct tool for the job, which I'm going to show you in this video, then you can have more confidence in the health of the drive. So I've had some incorrect results from some of these built-in things. Like, for example, if you get a Dell computer, it may have a Seagate hard drive in it, or any other brand computer having a different branded hard drive or solid state drive. So the different branded computers with different branded hard drives is the same reason why there's multiple different vendors of different components throughout the computer, such as Intel or AMD for the CPU, or Crucial or some other one of many different brand names for the memory. And then the hard drive, you got Seagate, Western Digital, ADATA, Samsung, and a whole host of other not as common names. But regardless of what's installed in your system, if you can find out what you have and run the correct tests on them, then you can have some accurate results. So first, let's have a look at how we can determine what hard drive you have. So aside from actually opening up the computer, pulling the hard drive out of it, possibly having to turn it upside down even once it's out of the computer so that you can read the name on it, there's a way of finding out in your computer. Actually, a couple of ways. So let's have a look at my screen. The way I do it through Windows 10 is right click on the Start button and go to the Device Manager. Now, the Device Manager is good for any operating system that you have. Here we've got disk drive, so if I click the arrow beside it, it expands and it shows me that I have 2 drives installed in my system. Now, I've got one is the main operating system drive and the other one is for storage. So here you can't really tell which one is which, but I'll show you in a moment how you can tell that as well. So here, this clearly says Kingston, so we know it's a Kingston type drive. And here it's got a code. Now, what you can tell with some of these, it makes it helpful to know, is if it starts with ST, it's usually Seagate Technologies, so we know it's a Seagate hard drive, but it could also be another brand. But I find that even if it's one of the other brands, if it starts with ST, you can safely download and use the Seagate tools and get some good results from that. But if it starts with a WD, that's Western Digital, or a WDC for Western Digital Corporation, then you'd want to get the Western Digital tool. The other way of finding out in Windows 10, which also can help you determine which drive it is opening up the Task Manager. Now you can do that by pressing Control-Alt-Delete and running the Task Manager, or you can just right click on the taskbar and go to Task Manager. And in the Task Manager we go under Performance. It shows the CPU and memory, but if you look at the hard drive, it'll show you here we've got disk 0, which is usually your main operating system drive, and it should say C on there. In my case, it's also got another drive letter. But then there's the D drive, disk 1, so that's my second drive, and it's good to test them both. So with the first one highlighted over here, you can see it says Kingston, so I know that that Kingston drive that we saw over here is my main drive, and that happens to be a solid state drive. The second one, when I click on it, it says ST, so that's the ST code over here, so I know my second drive is a Seagate drive. And so to test these things, I need a Kingston tool ideally for solid state drives, and also a Seagate tool to test the Seagate drive with. Okay, so now we want to look at where to get the tools and how to use them. And I'll provide links in the description box below. If you're not watching this video on YouTube directly, you can go straight to YouTube and it'll have all the links in the description box. So I opened up a couple of sites in advance here for this, just so that you could see where to find these things. And of course I didn't get the Kingston one prepared, but anyway, Western Digital, I'll have the link below as I said, but if you go to support-en.wd.com, you can go to the downloads menu item, and when you scroll down here you'll see Data Lifeguard Diagnostic for Windows. And when you expand that, you may need to scroll down a bit. It's got some information about the size, version, the date of release, and there's a download button for you to download it. And it confirms the supported operating systems below as well. But whatever you're downloading here, it's the current most latest one, and it should be working. If you're using an operating system that's not supported, you're probably on something so old that you should be updating that, and that's a whole other story. So we'll go ahead and download this. It's always good to save it. Depending on your web browser, it may look different. And you should already know how to save and download files, otherwise that's a whole other video for me to make for you guys. Now it shows it here, it's zipped, so I want to extract it first. Although some files will work fine without extracting them, it's always a good habit to extract the file first so that it runs properly. So once it's downloaded, we want to run this file. And if it prompts you for any security alerts, you want to do that. You can choose all the defaults to install. And it's good to create a desktop shortcut so you have access to it all the time. I'm not going to do that in this case. And just follow the prompts, install, and launch it after it's done. So when we hit finish, it's going to open automatically. And when you open it, at least the first time, you have to accept the license agreement and go next. And so in here now it has the two drives listed in here, and you'll see it's got the Kingston one and the Seagate Tools one. And this shows exactly why you need to have the right tool for the job. You'll see here that this is one tool that, just like a brand name computer, one tool fits all. While the Smart Status is what gives you the very quick, obvious signs of failure if it can see anything right away. Now, the Smart Status is not available for the main solid state drive, and that's because this tool isn't meant for Kingston, and also because it's a solid state, it's not able to recognize that. Now, the other tool, well, I didn't mean to double click on it, but it shows that it passed. Now, of course, with this particular tool, you can double click like I did by accident the first time, and it gives you some detailed information for any of you nerds out there that really want to know more technical detail about it. But the bottom line is you highlight the one drive that you want to test, in this case the one that's supported, and it tells you right here, highlight a physical drive. We've done that, and then click this picture to run tests. So yeah, we're going to click that. We can do a quick test and extended test. You don't want to erase the drive, but you can view results here later as well. So we'll do a quick test and hit start. And it confirms that you want to close any programs and files that you have open to make sure you don't lose anything during this test. And that includes running any video screen recording, which I am doing as I record this video. I found out that half an hour of video recording is a complete waste of editing, because after this first few minutes of recording, I noticed that after hitting OK on this message, it actually cut out my screen recording. So I'm having to re-record the remainder of this video. So I can't run this test, so I'm going to cancel that. But it would run through this test and take within 2 minutes, give you a green check mark saying pass, or it'll give you a red X and say failed. So if it failed the quick test, obviously you want to replace the drive. But if it passed it and you suspect there's an issue, then you want to go in to run the extended test and then see if that passes with a green check mark or a fail with a red X. And here, of course, we can't run the test on the solid state drive. It's not capable of doing a smart test. But if we go into here, we can do the quick and the extended tests. It's just not quite the same, because this is looking at a regular hard disk drive, which is laid out a little differently than a solid state. So we're going to skip this and move on to the next one. So if you got a Seagate hard drive, again, I'll have the links below for all of this, but the Seagate, you can go to seagate.com, hover over support and go to software downloads. And if you scroll down, you'll see CTools, and there's download for Windows. And of course you want to save that and run it and just follow all the prompts to install it. I'm not going to go through that because you should know how to install a program, otherwise there's some other videos that we could have for you. So I've got the program already installed, so I just launch it and have to say yes to agree to it and accept the license agreement, and then it pops up showing me all the drives that I have in my system, the solid state as well as the regular hard disk drive. Now I would put a check mark on one of these before running the test, and that lights up the basic test, which it's grayed out initially until I put the check mark. Hover over that and I can do a smart check. Now the smart status on the Western Digital just came up instantly when we launched the program, but with Seagate CTools we have to tell it to run the test. Now if I want to run this on the solid state drive, I can see there is no smart test available, but we do have short and long generic tests. If I go to the other one here, we have a short drive self-test. So it knows how to test itself rather than just a generic test. So the short self-test would be a longer test, about 2 minutes to complete. And if this doesn't cut out my video recording now, because I just realized I'm not supposed to be doing this because it could have cut out the video, but it will be a nice surprise that it actually works and didn't cut the video out. So surprisingly, C-Tools did not cut out my video recording, but the Western Digital did. Anyway, that's a whole other thing to think about. So, with the tests, highlight the drive you want, go out to basic tests. We did the smart and the short, or self-drive, short drive self-test, if I can English properly. Now, the other tests you have here are generic, short and long, and those are meant for other drives as well, but I will usually do the short generic in addition to the short drive self-test, just to give it additional testing just to be sure. But if it wasn't a supported Seagate drive, it would not have a self-test. The long generic will be good because it will do a lot longer test on the drive and see how healthy it is. So that will take multiple hours depending on the size of your drive and what shape it's in, but you would want to run that test as well. That's it for the Seagate C-Tools. Now if you've got a solid state drive, ADATA is one of the solid state drives. You can go to adata.com, choose consumer, and under support, hover over download and then valuable software, because it is valuable. We'll scroll down, there's SSD Toolbox. You can click on that name and scroll way down, there's download SSD Toolbox. And you want to save and run that, but I've already got it, so I'm going to skip ahead. So once you've got it downloaded, you extract it, install it, and then run it, and then you will get this nice looking little program appear. So it'll show you all the drives that you have installed with information below, depending on which one you click on. And you can see the temperatures, which is interesting that the temperature of my regular disk drive that spins generating heat is at 36 degrees Celsius, where the SSD is at 43. So very interesting. SSDs are supposed to run cooler, and this for some reason is showing the opposite. Now there is a few differences with this here. You'll see the drive tells you how much space there is, but this is going a bit outside the scope of this video. Ideally you want to have at least 20% free space. This is a little low, so that's not very good. The drive health here, you've got if it's got at a warning level, or in this case it's green and good all the way over to the good side, and the estimated life remaining is at 100%. Smart details over here, similar like what we saw in the other programs. You can get some great detail and drive details as well. The important thing here is diagnostics, and when you're in the diagnostics, make sure you're highlighted on the solid state drive. If you have two drives, you don't want to be on the wrong drive, so make sure you're on the solid state drive because you're using a test for a solid state. So there's quick and full. We'll run the quick, and it shows the bar, and before I could finish talking, it's highlighted and says done successfully. That's how quick it is. The full diagnostic, I hit run, there's the box. It's going to fill up real quick as well, just because I know how fast this drive can go. And even though the bar is full, it doesn't pop up the message right away. So you got to be patient a little bit and wait until you see this pop-up message saying that the scan is done successfully and there's no errors. Just because the bar went all the way across from 0 to 100% and shows it's done, that just means it's done scanning. It doesn't mean that it's giving you the results yet. So here's where we get the results. and everything is good. And from the drive info screen, that's where we can also see that the smart status basically is that it's healthy. So this is the ADATA testing a Kingston solid state drive. So you can have any type of SSD tool to test any type of SSD drive, just like you can have almost any type of hard disk drive tool test any type of hard disk drive. So it's important to have the proper tool for the job and make sure you're using the right ones. So if it is Seagate, use C-Tools. If it's Western Digital, use the Western Digital Diagnostics. And with that, let's have a look over here. We'll go back to Western Digital site, going into the downloads, and if we scroll down a bit, now we saw the Data Lifeguard Diagnostic tool for Windows. But if you scroll down more, we didn't have to click on that to scroll, but I went too far. Western Digital SSD Dashboard. So this is to test the Western Digital SSD drives. So if you have the regular Western Digital hard disk drive, you use the tool that I showed you earlier in the video. But if it's a Western Digital solid state drive, you need to get this tool, and it will run similar to how the ADATA one did. So making sure you have the correct diagnostic tool for the drive that you have is important to get accurate results. Although there are exceptions to the rule, but do your best to get the correct drive, then you'll have the correct information to know if you need to replace that drive or not. That's it for this video, guys. Thanks again so much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you found this video helpful, and subscribe if you haven't, and stay tuned for future helpful tech tutorials. Thanks so much, guys. I wouldn't be doing these videos without you, and your comments and suggestions for future videos are greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.